Truth and love, y'all. I gotta hop right into this. This has to do with people who have been abused, um, in any way, shape, or form, but especially sexually abused and manifestation. Okay. Um, this has a lot to do with the sacral chakra, and reasons why we can't manifest is because we're triggered so often. When you manifest, you visualize what you want, right? But then once you visualize what you want, you have to ground yourself in feeling it. This is gonna be the hardest part, or I don't want to like. This is has usually been the hardest part, at least for me, because let's hop into the sacral chakra. The sacral chakra is all about creativity. It's about, feelings. The affirmation for the sacral chakra is I feel. It's the element to it is water. Okay. Um, and when your sacral chakra is off, we often feel very guilty. All right, when it's unbalanced. And so when we visualize what we want, and sometimes we have a hard time doing that too. When we visualize what we want, to try to ground ourselves in the feeling of it, immediately we feel like we can't have it, or we feel like we don't deserve it, or we feel like we can't obtain it somehow, some way, and we feel hopeless. That feeling of hurt and hopelessness still resides in the sacral chakra. So there's one word that changes the whole game that hit me one day, and it's the word pleasure. Okay, now for me, that word, I'm okay with hearing it or whatever, but my body doesn't even like that word. And I know a lot of people who have been sexually abused who could even get triggered off of hearing the word pleasure, because everything in the world is so damn sexualized. Immediately, pleasure has to do with sex. Okay, but it has to do with whatever you want to take pleasure in. There's pleasure in laying down and having a good rest or having a good sleep. There's pleasure in, being able to make somebody smile or make somebody's laugh. Pleasure is everywhere, it's in everything. And so when the sacral chakra in the rest of our bodies is holding on to old feelings, that of hopelessness and hurt and pain and betrayal, and holding on to all those things, it completely pushes away the pure the purity of pleasure, and it puts us in a perverted state of mind, where I know for me personally, I found more pleasure in visualizing my abusers getting hurt. I had more pleasure in visualizing that people that hurt me the most um, would get their lick back, or I could get my lick back on them. You know what I mean? Like, I had more visualization and pleasure on wishing the people that violated me the hardest. He could do something. um, I had the hardest time of letting go of these people. They had a hold on me for so long. And so my only pleasure, really genuinely, that made my body feel good the way pleasure is supposed to do, is by visualizing and using all my visualization and feelings on them. And that's a waste of time. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I know there's a lot of people out there who have been abused for a long time as children, to visualize, their abusers or rapists or narcissistic parents or whoever getting truly hurt. Um, violators, you know what I mean? We have it in our minds because we feel so guilty. we're so overconsumed with guilt that we are sunken into a place of being in our own jail cell, being in our own prison. And so when that happens, we feel like the people who have abused us, they're the ones that are out there living mad free. They're the ones that are free and we're not. When it's actually the complete opposite. Yes, we are imprisoned to a heavy extent via our own mind, our own feelings, but they're just as trapped, because 9 times out of 10 they were abused too. It's just that hurt people, and they think they're living free and they're really not. Okay. um so here's what I would invite you to do. Okay, I want you to write down the word pleasure on a blank piece of paper. And I want you to free write. All right, so write down the word pleasure and free write. If you don't know what free writing is when you put your pen to paper and you start writing. You don't think about what you're writing. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to rhyme. You don't have to worry about punctuation marks. Just literally blurt it out on paper what the word pleasure means to you. How the word pleasure actually makes you feel. Once you're done writing that, get another blank piece of paper, write the word pleasure again, and write about the things that you think could actually give you pleasure. You think about the things that you genuinely enjoy or genuinely want to enjoy. Okay, so for just a wild example, say you haven't been to the water park in a long time, and that used to give you much pleasure as a kid or as a teen or whatever, right? I want you to write down the things that have genuinely given you pleasure, things you would like to do again. And remember that you genuinely are worth doing these things and feeling these things. Okay? Anything that you genuinely want in life, feel the pleasures of those things. Even if you never want to go back to the water park, even if you feel like you've outgrown it, tap back in to the things that have given you pleasure, even if you don't plan on doing it again, and feel the freedom of that pleasure. Feel the freedom of it. Because when we try to go and shoot for the pleasures in life now, we often, and at least this is what I've noticed within myself, we have often replaced pleasure with impatience. Oh, let me just go and get this promotion, or get this job, or you know I want this in life, I want that in life, because we feel like we want to win and say to our abusers, I still made it, I'm still successful, I'm still here, I'm successful, you didn't keep me down. For many of us who are very determined to not allow our abuse to hold us down in that way, a lot of times we become impatient. We get determination and desperation twisted up very easily, because they're very similar. They're very, very similar energies. But we have to remember that success also means taking back your power. It's not about just getting that promotion. It's not just about money. It's about alignment. And if your sacral chakra is off, you have other chakras that are off, and your body is feeling off, and in that moment you're not 100% aligned. Okay, remember, success is about taking your power back, and part of your power is pleasure, and there's nothing wrong with feeling pleasure. Okay, so yes, on a blank piece of paper, write down the word pleasure, free write. Look at all of everything that you write, which is feelings, your thoughts. It could names could pop up, all that stuff, right? On another piece of paper, you write down things that you would like to feel pleasure in life. You know what I mean? If you still have a hard time feeling what that feels like, then on another piece of paper, you write down the word pleasure and write down the things that you remember having pleasure in. Okay, so like I said, if it was, um, going to that water park or playing cards with your friends or whatever it was, write down the times where you felt great pleasure and things that made you very happy, and feel those times through your memory. Your body, your mind, at some point in your life has experienced pleasure and it was good. So tap back into that. All right. And like I said, I myself, have been through um, CSA, or childhood sexual abuse, for a very long time. Also spiritually, I've experienced this, and so that visualization and that feeling and that manifestation of wanting to, hurt the abusers that have hurt me most. You have to remember that it's okay to let that go, because you holding on to them, they still are abusing you. You're still allowing them to be in your energy, holding you down in a way where you don't need to be held down. All right. I hope this isn't lacking. But that's all I got for you guys. If you got any questions, if you need help, please feel free to hit me up. All right. I love you guys. Raise the vibration. Peace.